Isentia, real data intelligence.
So, hello everyone. Thank you for spending your Thursday afternoon with us here at Isentia. We have been very excited for this webinar to happen in the Philippines as we conduct market-centric webinars across all our markets. You will also get a glimpse of our regional and local leaders speaking today. So sit back, get your pens if you want to take down some notes, grab your coffee or tea, and feel free to throw us questions in the chat box, and we will be happy to to answer them later during the Q&A session. I will be wearing two hats today as your moderator and also one of the session speakers. So let's get this rolling. Today, we will be happy to actually reinforce our presence here in the Philippines. And you will hear some company updates from us. And those who are attending those of you who are actually attending an Isentia webinar for the very first time, allow us to introduce who we are and what we do best. We will walk you through what is trendjacking in the duration of this session, how you can leverage on the exercise, and most importantly, zoom in to 3 diverse case studies where we see trendjacking present. I'll be turning you over now to my colleague, Daisy, so she can give you some updates about us here at Isentia. Over to you, Daisy.
All right. So thank you so much, Rochelle, for the introduction. So again, good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Stacy. I'm the Regional Business Director for Philippines, and it's great to be speaking with all of you today. All right, so for those who are not familiar with Isentia, or for those who are curious to know where is Isentia right now, so let me give you a short introduction of the company and introduce again the products and services that we have. All right. So Isentia, we are the Asia Pacific's leading integrated media intelligence and insights provider company, not just in Southeast Asia, but also in Australia and New Zealand. So our suite of products and services are designed to help communications professionals make great decisions. So we've been in the business for more than 38 years now, working with the biggest brands across Asia Pacific, and we continue to be recognized for our products and services, most notably the EMEC Awards for our insights expertise. So this includes, of course, EMEC Awards from 2014 to 2020, as you can see in the slide. And of course, we have awards from Marquis, Spark, and AFR Boss. So these only demonstrate that Isentia is very much committed to deliver excellence in in delivering the services that we have. All right. So what you see here is our track record. So these are the partial list of top brands that we have experience working or who are currently still working with Isentia. All right. So also Isentia is dedicated to support our clients through providing networking opportunities. We also do thought leadership events, and also we share best practices in the media intelligence and communication strategies for our clients. So in fact, this year, we released several white papers for the Philippine market. So this includes for telecommunications, e-commerce, we do white papers for alcohol and tobacco, and of course, the retail industries. And of course, Isentia has been in partnership with Hotel Sales and Marketing Association International. This is to bolster the resurgence of the travel industry deeply affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. And of course, we are very much present. We are very much involved in partnership with names such as IABC Philippines, PRSP, and we do speakerships conducted by some organizations like PR Asia, ENZ Chamber of Commerce, Philippine Retailers Association, and of course, the National PR Congress. All right. So the question now is, of course, how we support our clients. So I want you to meet our Isentia team, but first we want to answer how we support you, how we support our clients. So like what we always tell our clients, you are in good hands with Isentia team. Of course, from understanding your needs, understanding your objectives through our business development team, to our account management, insights and research, of course, and even our Isentia leadership. Yes, even our executive leadership team is also deeply involved in the overall process. So now, please let me introduce the regional leaders. Of course, we are headed by James Merritt, our CEO for Asia. And then, of course, we have Prashant Sasina, our head of insights for Asia. And of course, Pooja Chug, our account management director for Southeast Asia. And of course, our very own Lady Ochelle Espinosa, our regional insights director for emerging markets. And of course, we have Arun for advanced insights. We have Wei, who is also part of this as webinar, our client solution director, and of course, yours truly, and the rest of the team from the Philippines. All right. So now let me update you on the platform and reporting capabilities of Isentia. So here what you see is our suite of products. Of course, you are very much familiar with Media Portal. So Media Portal is our tool for mainstream monitoring. It allows you to distribute, monitor, and even create basic analysis of your media efforts. And of course, we have one social dashboard. So this, of course, this is for social listening. And of course, we have custom dashboard and insight solutions. So this is for a, let's say you want to have a deeper understanding of the consumer and the media perception. All right. So just recently, just to update you, there has been an acquisition between Isentia and Access Intelligence. So Access Intelligence is a provider of SaaS software for media, PR, marketing, and communications industries. So actually, this acquisition will create great opportunities and also will give benefits to our clients by us having a more competitive product offerings and of course a broader geographic reach for Isentia. And here we want to take this opportunity to introduce Pulsar. So Pulsar is a social listening and audience intelligence platform that provides analysis and insights for social media and online conversation. So this is a social listening tool as well. So Pulsar has three modules. So we have Pulsar Trends. It allows you to discover and investigate trending topics by location or category. So this is very much interesting. And of course, we have Pulsar Track and of course Pulsar Core. So if you want to know more about this product, please do not hesitate to reach out to your account management team and of course your business development team. All right. So insights. So for our insights, so basically in Isentia, we believe that insight without action is a missed opportunity. Is that correct? Yes. So hence in Isentia, we always look for opportunities or we always find ways to, to always improve our insights capabilities. The reason maybe that's the reason also we have received some awards, particularly from AMEC. So AMEC is the International Association for Measurement and Evaluation of Communication. So just to highlight, we have received the most effective planning, research, and evaluation in consumer communications. This is in partnership with our esteemed client, SM Supermalls. All right. So here we have our insights product. So we categorize it into three. So we can do study on brand impact using real-time data. If let's say you want to know the trends, if you want to identify consumer segments, so we can do that for you. We can also do media impact to understand the impact of your media exposure, and of course reputation analysis. Yes, you heard it right, we do reputation analysis if you want to know what people say, think, and feel about your organization in general. So yeah, so these are the solutions we provide, but please take note that Isentia solutions are very much customizable. It will always depends on the client's needs and objectives. So we want to really know what are the pain points and what are the, questions that you really want answers. So of course, we also very much open for collaboration. So let us know. So basically, that's it from my end. So I won't keep you any longer. So over to you, Achel. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Daisy. Now it's actually time to swing some action. And you may have actually seen the term trendjacking online or in social media feature pieces. But what is it really? Or it could be the other way around. You actually haven't heard of the term, but in fact, you see it or even participate in it all the time. All right. So let me show you this slide. So it was not too long ago when you've heard of the incident, right, involving the fast food giant Jollibee's infamous fried towel incident through a customer's Facebook post that actually has gone viral on social media after her order of fried chicken turned to be a fried towel instead. So from hashtag Jolly Towel to hashtag Towelgate, everyone went abuzz. You see on your screen here some examples of brands talking let's say a brand here talking a slight jab in referencing the incident, and another post is supposedly content coming from Jollibee's biggest rival, McDonald's, about throwing in the towel. And, albeit it's witty and good in wordplay, it was disputed by McDonald's as not issued by their camp. On the other hand, you see some sample posts from brands showing solidarity with Jollibee and they're riding on the same news or trend. Now, while all these may be different approaches, all these are actually part of trendjacking. If you noticed how most businesses in the Philippines have media campaigns surrounding major national events or news, that's actually right. That's trendjacking. And it refers to the adoption of popular trends by brands and organizations with the very purpose of gaining attention or promoting an agenda. When done correctly, trendjacking, as a term suggests, is actually an amazing marketing tool for businesses to connect with their audiences, with specifically their target audiences, and drive positive brand reinforcement. On the other hand, trendjacking has its own risks, and with the potential to backfire or even alienate the audience and even turn them against your brand in very worst case scenarios. So trendjacking, we're talking about trendjacking. This actually happens when brands and organizations, and when we talk about brands, this can even be personalities whose personas are actually their branding. They notice something that it is gaining a lot of attention online and then interject themselves into it. The process of trendjacking is actually pretty straightforward. You'll want to choose a relevant trend that resonates with your target audience and align the trend with a company's voice, values, and even tone in terms of executions. Following that, you can, snatch your creative person in the organization and you pick the right opportunity or moment to execute a certain campaign. Now, in our experience in Isentia, some of our clients are engaged in trendjacking, and they actually ask us, how is this impacting our digital reach or their digital reach? So in times, for example, where in ROI or return of investment, especially for teams that have budgets, and that's the buzzword among marketers, PR and comms professionals, there is a huge pressure on on these people to deliver maximum reach for their message or, let's say, post in social with a minimum investment. And trendjacking actually offers a piggyback ride to content managers and SEO specialists to drive more eyeballs onto the post or the articles. Additionally, we're also often asked by our clients, is staying visible the need for many brands? Or is staying visible actually the need of all brands and organizations? Or again, as I mentioned, even personalities whose personas are their brands. Brands are all vying for a slice of the pie in the mind space of consumers. And in order to increase that brand recall, most of them, or some of them, actually resort to trendjacking. A key element of trendjacking is playing with current trends, whether this is socio-economical, socio-political, or sports or any current affairs. And you'll see that later in the case studies that we will feature. With brands so accessible to people through social media, audiences are actually responding to socially intelligent brands. Brands have actually been using the latest trends to create content in the hopes of going viral and even expanding their audiences, create social or digital communities, in fact, in the short term or even in the long run. And while plenty of brands in the Philippines specifically, we don't shy away from, taking a stand against a controversial issue, news, or social cause, especially as the biggest event of our nation is coming next year. Many brands are also choosing to play it safe for the right reasons. And there is nothing wrong with capturing a trend or even reinventing it as your own. Right? So it's been a mouthful. So let's breathe a little. But one thing is clear to our audiences here in this webinar at this point. Make sure that by trendjacking, this adds value to your brand promise, to your brand values, and strike it during an impeccable timing. Right? So the question is trendjacking the end all and be all of, let's say, marketing strategists, PR and comms professionals, especially at this point in the digital age and our social media presence? Not really. Trendjacking is a double-edged sword, and that it even cuts both ways. If you decide to, or your organization decides to pursue a trend that's no longer relevant, it makes your brand look dated and out of touch. And so make sure to always conduct study, adequate research, unravel insights about your target audience and about your industry before you even decide to trendjack. And think twice if you're actually targeting a trend that deals with sensitive issues. Otherwise, your brand can just, come across superficial and have bad taste. So the key is be bold, but also be aware. So in short, there is no rule book when it comes to trendjacking. And some of our clients in the Philippines always ask this, is there a rule? What's a step one? What's step two? None. Only general guidelines and principles to follow. Trendjacking only occurs in reaction to real world events. And even if you don't have the chance to use it now, it's a good strategy to have in your marketing toolkit or PR and comms plans whenever the right opportunity arises. But while there is no rule book, let me add these points to consider for trendjacking. Number one is speed. Brands need to act within a small window of opportunity to reap the benefits of trendjacking. Again, impeccable timing. This dramatically increases your brand's chances of getting the eyeballs of both, let's say, news outlets and social and mainstream media and your targeted audiences. And again, you want to build a community. Another point to consider is relevancy. How relevant is the story to your brand, to your persona, or to your products, to your services, to your offerings? It is not necessary to jump in the wagon to bank on every new trend if it doesn't even fit your services or even the preferences of your target audiences. In several instances, and in our experience in Isentia, a brand takes a stance regarding a social issue, but it doesn't work in its favor because it's not relevant to what it does, right? Overplaying the trend simply doesn't work in trendjacking. And we've seen that. We've measured that. And some of our clients have driven results out of these insights that we have uncovered. Lastly, authenticity. We always hear this. Let's be genuine, be true, be real. But you don't have to be combative all the time just to show that you're authentic. Sometimes humor is also a key element and key component in trendjacking. The line between being witty, throwing shade, and being controversial is actually a thin line that brands, organizations, and personalities need to tread carefully. The days of, let's say, publicity we always say this, right? Any publicity is good publicity. We beg to disagree that they're long gone, and brands must stay authentic to their personality. And if a trend doesn't resonate with your values, again, with your brand promise and with your tone, for example, it's okay to sit out. It's okay not to trendjack. So, as we wrap this session up and we begin, deep diving into the case studies, trendjacking, in fact, in its most fundamental element is storytelling. As PR and comms professionals, or you're in marketing, we're all communicators. Trendjacking is all about storytelling. You take what's relevant at the moment, you build a narrative around the story with a hint of your brand personality. And lastly, present it to your target audience. Because at the end of the day, they're the ones that can make or break your brand. Right? So just to leave this with you, according to Raymond Chandler, and we're talking about storytelling, a good story cannot be devised and it has to be distilled. And it's the same when you execute trendjacking. So let me just add and introduce to you, if you're a marketing professional, I'm sure you've heard of the AIDA model, and this is a model for converting strangers into customers. And AIDA stands for awareness, interest, desire, and action. In fact, if you're the question is always, where does trendjacking lie in the AIDA framework? Trendjacking is only at the beginning. It's at the awareness. It's grabbing the attention of your target audience. And you can use that to jumpstart converting strangers into fans, into customers. And who knows, they will also be the advocates of your brand eventually. So while I wrap this up and before I fully turn this over to our next speakers, the question is, should your brand be using trendjacking? If your sole objective is to boost views by riding the wave and spamming feeds for equity, for numbers, maybe our take is no. But if your objective is to customize your brand's communication to relate to the existing trend or news or current affairs by making your brand's communications more relevant towards it, then yes, it does make sense to trendjack. All right. So this afternoon, we will be discussing 3 diverse case studies highlighting a cause and effect as such an event and how trendjacking played its part in the picture, from an untimely death to historical wins and reception towards a campaign as events. Let's dive into these. I'll turn you over now to Kate for the first one. Over to you, Kate.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Ochel. So hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session. So for the first case study this afternoon, we will be looking into the dominant social media conversations we have observed after former President Noynoy Aquino, or let's just call him Pinoy, passed away last June. But before we get digging into the findings, let us pause here first and watch this video to give you a brief overview on the Paalam Pinoy case study. Okay, so basically that's the case study in a nutshell. But now that that's out of the way, let us begin our conversation. So let's just backtrack. So back in June, the death of Pinoy came as a shock to the Philippine nation, since there was not really much conversation on the status of his health in the media, right? Aside from the occasional news on him being hospitalized. So on the morning of June 24, when it was yet to be confirmed, rumors on his passing has caused quite a stir already, particularly in the social media. Much so, conversations grew in the digital space as soon as Pinoy's family confirmed his death. So for this case study, we will be checking out the different slants of such conversations, but we will be focusing mainly on 2. So we will be talking about the health and politically inclined conversations. Also, we will be identifying prominent personalities who trendjacked and garnered traction from Pinoy's death. So on this slide, you will see one of the health-related discourse that we have observed from the conversation. So Pinoy's cause of death was not really disclosed right away after it was announced that he passed away. But there were diseases that received higher traction than the usual in the social space. So we looked into Google search trends and saw a steep rise in the number of searches for renal disease in particular in June 24. So the same was picked up by Facebook pages of media outlets, including GMA and TV5. So these pages joined in the conversation by banking on informative and reactive content on renal disease and also touched on diabetes. So this post drew netizens' attention as they tagged their friends and shared it with their loved ones. As you can see on this slide, the content generated significant engagement for both pages. Next slide, please. So aside from that, there was discourse as well on HIV/AIDS. So this was triggered by a radio interview of lawyer Larry Gadon. So Gadon trendjacked the event, gaining traction as he alleged that Pinoy had HIV/AIDS. So this was quite a touchy topic. So while this was mainly on mainstream media, conversations actually translated and carried over to the digital space. So their digital netizens, lawyers, and HIV advocacy groups condemned Gadon's comments. Evidently, negative sentiments were noted towards Gadon because of his controversial claim. Next slide, please. So now, before we delve into the political talks, we also want to highlight the personal outtakes from Pinoy's staff and colleagues, which were also rife during that period. So his staff shared anecdotes on Pinoy, and they revealed his love for music, his favorite food, and his preferred brands. So the digital public picked up on these stories because it had appealed to human interest, and it showed how ordinary and pure the late president was. As a result, though the stories were lengthy because most of those were feature articles or lengthy Facebook posts, it was still widely shared in the social sphere. Next slide, please. Now, let's go a bit political. Political allies of Pinoy also share their own tributes to the late president. So you can see in the slide, one of those that garnered significant traction was Vice President Leni Robredo, who talked about his friendship with Pinoy, and she also highlighted Pinoy's brand of leadership. You will also see in this slide a BuzzFeed chart, wherein we have noted that Pinoy was mentioned alongside phrases such as best president and history will treat him favorably. Next slide, please. So as you have seen in the video earlier, another political entity who was able to trendjack and earn notable engagement for her extension of condolences to the Aquino family was Senator Amy Marcos. So you can see on this slide, her gesture was actually putting her on a positive light. So the netizens commended her for setting aside political differences during a trying time. Next slide, please. All right, so stories on Pinoy's presidency as seen from the lens of his team triggered comparative conversations, particularly on the governance of Pinoy and the Duterte administration. So of course, critics of the Duterte government raised their disapproval on how the president is dealing in terms of the pandemic, the drug war, and foreign policies. So although majority of the buzz that we have gathered for Pinoy's death were positive towards the late president, the politically charged conversation sparked by the comparison of the Aquino Duterte governance unearthed the negative mentions that was caused by the recalls of the mishandling of the Mama Sapano clash. Next slide, please. And of course, with his political background, it is not surprising that the 2022 elections was also a discussion point in relation to his passing. So there was some hope that the Aquino magic will spark a movement that will propel the opposition to victory and to the next elections. So in the hopes of a decent leadership with good governance as what Pinoy has embodied. We must take note though that based on the buzz that we have seen, many still consider the Liberal Party is an elitist, while Duterte's brand as a straightforward and ordinary man remained appealing to many of his supporters, especially in the Facebook space. Next slide, please. So just to wrap it up Quickly, we have seen how even the death can stimulate engagement and discourse in the social media. Filipinos have been known for their active presence in the digital space, and through listening into pertinent conversations, you will be able to identify dominant trends and its corresponding sentiment. Also, as you have seen, political figures such as Vice President Lenny Robredo and Senator Amy Marcos, they were able to further their social media mileage as they condoled with the Aquino family. So with the real-time interactions provided by the digital platforms should not be neglected as an avenue to showcase the brand of leadership a politician or a brand is advocating for. So that's basically it for the Paalam Pinoy case study. Let me just hand it over to Vicky to share the trends we have unraveled from the 2021 Tokyo Olympics.
All right, so hello everyone. Good afternoon. I hope you can all hear me well. So similar to what was done for the Pinoy report, we will also be starting this segment off with a quick video to help provide context on this report and as well as to set the mood. So let's sit back and enjoy this short video. All right, so let's get right into it. So, Ochel, if we can proceed to the bus trend slide. All right, so our report on the Tokyo 2020 Olympics covered the period of June 1st up until August 10th of this year. So over that entire period, we saw over 180,000 plus buzz. And we do notice here in this buzz trend that it did peak on July 27 with about 30,000 plus mentions. So when we looked into this, July 27 was actually a day after Heidelin Diaz won the Philippines' first ever Olympic gold medal. Next slide, please. So through our buzz team, we were able to spot several Filipino athletes being mentioned throughout the digital space. So the top 5 included Heidelin Diaz, Nesty Petesio, Yumir Marshall, Carlos Yulo, and EJ Obiena. Next slide, please. So still on that exact same buzz theme, we would focus it or we zero into the most used word or phrase, which is, if you see there in the buzz theme, it's the one that's right smack in the middle. So that one is the presidential spokesperson best Olympics. So upon checking, this was actually a Facebook post which related to the statements of PH presidential spokesperson Harry Roque on the performance of the Philippines in the Olympics not being a coincidence under the Duterte administration. Now, upon checking the comments within that post, we did notice this term called credit grabbing was being used a lot in the comments. So this was mentioned in relation to the 2019 Aus Duterte matrix, which falsely accused Heidelin Diaz or falsely tagged Diaz. So this specific post from News 5 did earn around 40,000 plus in terms of engagements. Next slide, please. So at this point, you may be wondering how exactly did brands trendjack or capitalize on the Olympic Games? So firstly, we did find some brands that seized the moment and got creative with their congratulatory posts. So here we have 3 good examples. We have Lazada, Starbucks, and Nestle. So for Lazada, what they did was they put a twist to their tagline and they incorporated Heidelin Diaz into it. So their posts amassed a whopping 150,000 plus in terms of engagement. Now for Starbucks, they went for a more simple but effective approach. Simple and effective in a way that they were still able to capture the essence of the athletes' sports. So for this example, we have here their congratulatory post for EJ Obiena, and this one garnered 20,000 plus in terms of engagements. Now for Nesty, this one is quite amusing. They banked on the fact that one of the athletes, Nesty Petesio, has a very similar name to their brand. So that one actually amused and delighted netizens, which helped them earn 6,000 plus in terms of engagements. Next slide, please. Now, we also saw other brands who knew the personas and built on the personas' affinity on their or towards their products and services. So cosmetic brands Everbilena and L'Oreal capitalized on Heidelin Diaz's win following her victory. Now, actually, after Diaz's victory, there were a lot of articles and features and materials popped up discussing her bold lipstick choices. Now, Diaz herself actually mentioned that she uses one of Everbilena's lipsticks, and she sees lipsticks as something that empowers her, and that bold colors serve as her quote-unquote secret weapon. So following that, L'Oreal pledged 2 million pesos in products to Filipino Olympians, while Everbilena gifted Diaz with 1 million pesos worth of their products. So definitely, Everbilena and L'Oreal were not the only brands to capitalize on Diaz's win or her affinity towards makeup products. We also saw other brands who launched makeup sales hinged on the messages of empowerment and beauty combined with strength. Next slide, please. So other brands extended their cheer and celebration to the public through discounts or promotional codes. So the day after Heidelin Diaz won, we saw or we observed Grab and Food Panda releasing promo codes. So just a curious question, we want to know if you are one of those persons who availed of these promo codes during that time. If you did or if you did not, you can share them in the chat. So we see here in the examples that yes, these posts did garner sizable engagement, but what is more interesting is how the netizens were commenting on these posts. We saw netizens tagging other FB users. So this type of activity actually helps further the reach of your brand as it amplifies your exposure, all the while attracting more interaction on your post. Next slide, please. So in the midst of all the cheer and festivities, we did observe some brands who opted to keep it real. So we have here Orocan. Orocan is a top plastic manufacturer in the country, and Orocan stood out due to its candid approach. It actually indirectly called out some brands who have shown support towards or who have shown support for Heidelin Diaz after she won the Olympic Games, but were absent when Diaz was asking for financial assistance for her training. So this type of post, netizens lauded it, netizens were commending it, and acknowledging the team's effort and the guts for injecting something like that into their promotional materials. So adding to this, you'll notice here in the screenshots that the brand's real-time response added a human element to the brand or gave it a human side. So this led to or cultivated meaningful conversations and generated positive feedback from the public. Next slide, please. Now, aside from athletes, we also noticed or we also took note of some corporate personalities who were mentioned throughout the period. So one of them was business tycoon Ramon Ang. So for those of us who are not very familiar with Ramon Ang is a longtime partner and supporter of the Philippine sports. Now, given RSA's or Ramon Ang's celebration of Heidelin Diaz's win, we did see a number of comments from netizens calling others to patronize, support, and actually buy San Miguel Corporation products in appreciation of Ang's generosity. Next slide, please. So now here we have some slides, or actually 2 slides on the top 10 channels that mentioned Olympics. So in the top 10, we highlighted here the Senora Santibanez Facebook page. So for those of you who are not very familiar with the PH social media landscape, this Facebook page is known for its humor and its wit. So we found that they did have a post asking when sabong or cockfighting will be part of the Olympics. They even asked netizens who they would enter as the rooster for the competition. So this single post amassed more than 100,000 plus in terms of engagements. And what was interesting was that in the comments, we noticed that netizens were mentioning local personalities such as Betchin Barreto and Atong Ang. So upon further investigation, this is because Barreto and Ang were actually present in a sabong event, which was videoed and then went viral. Next slide, please. So another channel, part of the top list, was the Kapuso Mo Jessica Soho. So a bit of context again for this one, for those who are not very familiar with it. This Facebook page highlights or leverages on the story of real people, or the real stories of netizens or locals in the country. So their post highlighted Artemio Rocamora, who was a previous Olympian back in 1964. So in that post, netizens were seen giving their heartfelt messages, giving their appreciation for the past Olympian. So this Kapuso Mo Jessica Soho Facebook page and this Senora Santibanya's Facebook page signals that the PH digital public leans towards or are interested in funny posts that are able to incorporate the latest events or Filipino tendencies and cultures, or those that tickle the heart or are more emotionally geared. Next slide, please. So given all this, how exactly can we as Isentia help you as a brand? So as comms and marketing professionals, we all know that it is imperative that we track mentions of our brand. So after that, the next step would be tracking mentions of our competitors. So at Isentia, we do have reports that dive into social media mentions of whatever brand of your choosing, reports that focus on top conversations, most active voices, or even those that focus on events or issues. We even opt to highlight low-hanging fruits or other opportunities for certain brands. Now, we also have reports that delve into specific attributes that your brand stands for, and if there are differences in the buzz that mention your competitors. Furthermore, we can also help guide a brand in determining whether or not what your competitor is doing is something worth adopting or something worth mirroring, and how you can position yourself given relevant conversations. Next slide, please. Second is that we can help you know what type of content works or what type of postings makes your audience tick or makes them or entices them to engage or comment. So again, at Isentia, we're able to measure the effectiveness of your brand's content on your own Facebook page or Twitter page. So the result of this study usually aims to answer the questions of what type of posts work, what type of posts don't work, and what factors drive those performances or those engagement numbers. Last slide, please. So lastly, we all know that reputation matters, and this was also touched on by Achel and Kate previously. So yes, Isentia, and sorry, as well as Daisy even. So yes, at Isentia, we can help you assess your reputation or how you are being recognized as an organization. So the finding of this report can be leveraged on to assess your strengths or identify the gaps in your company's strategy, culture, and delivery, all to improve your brand's performance. So that concludes our report for the Tokyo 2020 Olympics. I will now be joined again by Kate to discuss our last case study.
Okay, thanks, Vicky. So now on to our last case study for today. From untimely death to victories and now to body positivity. Let us once again take a pause here and tune in to this video for a backgrounder for our next case study. Okay, so now we are peeking into their actions and how netizens intervened. Okay, so we'll look into how the netizens intervened the media in relation to the pandemic effect ad of Bella Medical Group. So just looking back, the ad fanned conversations in the social space as soon as it was launched last August 10. Next slide, please. So we gathered data using the keywords Bello or pandemic effect across Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. So for this topic, almost half of the conversation was actually found on public Facebook pages. Next slide, please. So the pandemic effect ad actually started off as a very relatable one, since it is true that it can really get stressful to watch negative news What more negative reports on pandemic when you are currently in the middle of it, right? However, the exaggeration on what stress did to the pretty lady, coupled with the messaging of tough times call for beautiful measures that was flashed as the digital ad ended, presented a controversial narrative to the public. At the onset, both Bello and the agency behind the ad, the Giggle Advertising Group, they both received criticisms. Some netizens demanded a public apology from the brand for its upsetting ad. Next slide, please. So following the launch of this ad, there was a digital public outcry with hashtags hashtag pandemic effect and hashtag boycott Bello trending on Twitter. Also, organic traction, attuning to self-love, and being comfortable in your own skin was amplified through personal stories, especially on Twitter again. Next slide, please. So yes, negative comments dominated the conversations. However, there was a fraction of netizens who were not bothered by how the ad was presented. There were those who think and said that the ad is actually representative of the reality and it actually brings to the table an important discussion on taking care of one's health. So with that, we know that there will always be varied reactions for different topics. That is why it is important for brands to pay attention and wade through their social media conversations because somewhere there is a needle in the haystack. In one way or another, valuable insights can be mined and can be leveraged accordingly by brands in line with their communication objectives. Next slide, please. So if we would be backtracking, Giggle has been known to make uncanny and creative ads, which has proved to pick the public's attention. The pandemic effect also did so. If we'll talk about brand awareness, yes, the ad was successful. But besides awareness, feedback is also vital. Having a lot of engagement on social media might seem like a success. However, a high volume of mention is only a positive sign when it is also accompanied by positive sentiment. Given this, understanding your audience's sentiment is important. How they feel about your brand and what it provides you and what it provides, it will be giving context on how you can evaluate your marketing and communication strategy moving forward. So let me just again turn it over to Vicky so that she can discuss the rest of the findings of this study.
All right, so this portion will delve into corporate apologies, the promises that they bring, and the potential pitfalls. So corporate apologies, when done correctly, can definitely help a brand recover from a PR disaster or turn negative perceptions around. However, when done badly or incorrectly, they can, of course, exacerbate the problem. Next slide, please. So companies hit by a crisis of misconduct typically issue a public apology to minimize their reputation damage, negative word of mouth, or declining sales. Now, when a brand knows that it is in the wrong or they are in the wrong, it should issue a statement in a timely fashion. So whether it's for social media or a social media gaffe or a much larger issue. However, an equally critical point is the banner by which the brand issues the apology. So following backlash, Giggle actually released a short and simple apology. So this type of apology worked for Giggle, and we saw that netizens expressed that they saw true remorse from the brand and a genuine willingness to improve. Now, however, releasing a public apology is definitely not enough. A brand should go beyond just releasing the public apology and understand and see how their apology or how their message was actually received by the digital public. So the efficacy of apology will definitely depend or varies depending on your audience, your brand image, and message factors. So that is why the importance of exploring and measuring how consumers receive your public apology is vital in your crisis communication. Next slide, please. So similar to Giggle, Bello also released an apology statement for the ad. Now, unfortunately, unlike what happened with Giggle, it was not as effective for Bello. So prior to the release of the statement, the head of the medical group did assure the public of the stand of their campaign, that it is not you, it is the pandemic effect that is causing all of this. However, netizens did not buy into it, and they continued to describe the ad as distasteful and insensitive. So this tells us that definitely a brand's image is pivotal. And nowadays, people have higher expectations of brands than ever before. So we see that people now lean towards green brands or eco-friendly brands. So whenever people buy your or purchase products or avail of your services, they're not just buying that item, they're investing into your brand's values. So given this, measuring consumer response to your brand would feed into a much wider metrics being used to determine the success of your business. So in summary, it would definitely help in your future planning. Next slide, please. So we all know that influencer marketing has become a very important strategy whenever we promote our campaigns and products. So Bello tapped Sab Magalona, Bacaro, Francine Diaz, and Gabby Garcia. So unfortunately for Magalona Bacaro, after the ad or after criticisms of the ad came in, she also experienced unfavorable feedback from her end. So amid all the fiasco, Sab did stand her ground. She called spade a spade, and she explained why she participated in the campaign. Now, moreover, she has also called on Bello to actively support diversity and inclusivity. Now, Bello has since apologized to SAB and for the pandemic effect campaign, which has since been taken down. Next slide, please. So majority of the marketing we see right now is based on the idea of inadequacy or messaging intended to cause fear or insecurity about what a person lacks or is not confident about. So from Giggle's point of view in creating the ad, they actually casted Bello as a hero or as the solution to the problem. Now, in the middle of a crisis, netizens yearn for narratives that underscore how they can flourish and find personal satisfaction. So that concludes our third and our final study. I will now hand this over to Denver to stitch everything up and help us understand how this can be of value to your brand.
All right, thank you, Vicky. So that was a lot to take in, those three case studies. So for now, let's take a breather. Is everybody still all right? Okay. I'm seeing a couple of questions from our chat. We'll get to that really soon after my section, and then yeah, we'll answer those. Thank you for throwing in your questions. So for now, we've seen some of the things that come up by spotting those trends and riding on those trends. The next question is identifying if whether or not your brand should be riding that wave or should you let it pass? And should you take that chance on that trend? The next question is, was it really worth it? Or was it really effective? Well, to answer that, allow me to share with what our media intelligence can do for you, whether you're new to media monitoring or you're taking your big step into your communication strategy. Okay, so if you're just starting out to monitor your media presence, Isentia can actually help you with that by monitoring your media traction for using our proprietary tools. These also come equipped with modules that already measure some of the typical performance indicators. But what I really want to focus on for the rest of my slides would be the bottom part of this one, which is mining actionable insights to further your media objectives through trendjacking. I understand that media-related functions differ from one firm to another, so maybe allow me to address our friends from the PR and communications teams we have today. But by all means, everything that I'm going to say may be used by any kind of communicator. So one of the things that Isentia can do for you is to integrate social media and traditional news. With social media rapidly becoming a new platform, for news consumption, it's only reasonable to take what's in our traditional media and go digital. Or maybe do it the other way around, take what's in our digital and take it to our traditional platforms. And we've seen this in our first case study where an interview from radio actually went to social media, although in a negative light, it's something that actually crosses the platforms. And where Isentia comes in is when we analyze which campaigns or which efforts are worth doing across those platforms. Some campaigns only are meant for social media, and some campaigns are only for mainstream media. Isentia can tell you where you can work on across those platforms. If you are, say, doing both platforms, we'll tell you if you need to ramp up one or the other, and we'll tell you where you're lacking and we'll support where you are doing really well. Next up, knowing whether you should go social or go traditional, then doesn't stop there. Then you need to know the next step, which is knowing where you are actually being talked about, so that you can penetrate the space where you can actually input your trendjacking efforts. In social media, we can tell you where your social media presence is, and are you really tapping your targeted audience? You may be having a lot of social media pickups, but then again, maybe you're just in a subreddit, which doesn't really tap your actual target audience. In the same manner, Isentia can assess whether you're giving the right media impact by situating yourself, say, in the front page of a newspaper or the centerfolds. Um, so that's what we can do, because after all, a well-written article or really good reviews, they lose their value when nobody actually gets to read them. The next thing Isentia can help you with is establishing that messaging for that particular messaging for a positive reception. Your trendjacking strategy doesn't stop at identifying where you can be seen or heard. The next step is identifying whether you're saying the right things. As PR and comms teams, we're all familiar that everyone has something to say, but not everybody gets listened to, and not everybody who gets listened to are perceived positively. That's why Asanta helps you track your messaging and determine which ones are the best to get the right reactions from your target audience to further build your brand's reputation. Then last for now, for our friends in the PR and comms, you can you could be trending for the wrong reasons. But Isentia wants to tell you that not all negative pickups deserve the same treatment as a crisis management response. Isentia's transpotting reports would actually analyze whether you getting some negative traction affects your brand reputation as a whole, or maybe it's something that you can let it go and sweep it under the rug. Should you need to respond, looking at these trending topics help you to be timely and proper with your responses as well. Now, I want to talk to our friends in the marketing section, even the consumer insights. But again, PR teams may be able to pick up something as well. So I guess the easiest thing that Isentia can help you with with our trend spotting studies would be looking at consumer behavior expressed in social media. Now, this is a great supplement for our traditional market surveys, because we are taking it into social media where timing is key. Well, my favorite example here and a personal victim, so to speak, is the Boodle phenomenon in home bodies. So assessing how to leverage that social media group's mentality is a really great way to boost your brand relevance and actually convert them into sales. Now, by trend spotting as well, Achal, can you keep the next slide? By trend spotting as well, you can find your potential advocates and detractors. Vicky mentioned that influencer marketing is one of the biggest avenues in marketing right now. But let me introduce to you an idea. Imagine getting an influencer where you have great social media reach, but this influencer actually has an affinity towards your brand. Wouldn't that be better? Because it actually humanizes your brand and it makes the product placement more believable. Next one, with studying trends, we also get the hints of potential market disruptors. And again, timing is everything here. Isentia helps you jump the gun and take that trend jacking strategy as your own and be the disruptor and not the disrupted within your industry. You can even be the actual trendsetter within your industry. The point here is that you need to be the game changer in the game that you have been playing really well already. And of course, your overall brand health is important. Next slide, please. Your overall brand health is important whether or not there is a viral moment going on in social media. And what Isentia can help you with is see your performance before, during, and after that particular viral moment. looking at your traction, looking at your sentiments, and covering story drivers in that particular time frame. Next, please. Just a couple more. Now, whether you're in PR or marketing, after looking at the trends to, measure yourself, the next big step is to look at what the rest of the players in your industry are doing. Some may be doing really good that you can replicate. Some are maybe doing really bad that you can stay away from. And Isentia will tell you what your competitors are doing so that you can keep focusing on yourself with that particular knowledge of others' experience. Now, to end my section, I just want to leave you with this quote from an 11-time surfer, 11-time world championship surfer. So he talks about learning how to read the ocean, and that a part of his success is wave knowledge. Now, I want you to understand that the entire media space is your ocean, and the trends are the waves ready to be ridden. Now, grab your surfboards and paddle away. So back to you, Achal, who will be answering most of the questions here.
All right. So in the interest of time, we've already started to answer some of your questions in the chat box, and if not, we'll reach out to you and answer them. So probably we can just take one question and then we can answer it here in the webinar. And again, we'll reach out to you. So one question actually is from Miss Grace here, and she actually asked, was there a time trendjacking failed, or what factors led to this? We also had some private questions such as, when is trendjacking too much? So essentially, these two questions can actually be combined. So to answer that, perhaps Vicky or Kate, you can answer, and then I can, or anybody else can chime in.
Yeah, sure. I can take that one. So to lay the ground for my answer to that question, we can start with the saying that too much of something or anything is bad. So based on data and our experience, this would boil down to three main things. So it would be your communications objectives, what is your strategy, and what do you want to achieve. Third is your second is your brand values. What does your brand represent? And do your values actually align with the trend? And third is the industry that you are in. Is there a link between your industry and the trend, or is your industry relevant in relation to the trend? So you may think that an automobile company does not necessarily have to trendjack on the passing of a former president, or that wouldn't make much sense. So you really have to look into these three factors to ascertain if you are, or if trendjacking starts to become too much.
All right, perhaps to just add to Vicky before we wrap this up, it fails or it becomes too much also, as per her answer, just to amplify that, that it goes back to what is the end goal and what you have in mind before even crafting your strategy, before even planning it, and before riding the wave. And consumers, it also bear in mind that there are consumers' expectations of organizations have become actually a fact that they should pay attention to. The rest of the questions, I think we've answered in the chat. We've also discussed them in the session, but we'll definitely reach out to those who have shared some of their queries to the team. And thank you for sending it over to us. To finally wrap this entire webinar, and thank you to 140 plus strong, 150 plus strong, actually we reached that earlier today. And thank you for joining us. To wrap this all up, I'd like to turn this over to Hui Yun Nang, our Client Solutions Director, and the lead of account management here in the Philippines and Thailand, to just say a few words. Over to you, Hui.
Thank you, Rochelle. Thank you again to all our lovely speakers for the insightful sharing today. I think it was really great to see so many familiar names joining us on the call today. And I hope you have found parts of the webinar that really resonate with you. As we have shared, I think the possibilities with trend spotting and even trendjacking for each brand is endless, and it's actually quite an up and coming ask from our clients from around the region. So whichever industry you're from, I'm actually quite positive that we'll be able to work with you to come up with many meaningful ideas and insights that can help you. We're able to use data to drive our discoveries and help you pick the right trends that are aligned with your brand to hop on. To add on to some of the case studies that were shared today, we've also done projects around trend spotting for food to help our food delivery partners decide which restaurants they should promote and use as part of their social media content strategy to get more likes and increase food orders. And to answer one of Grace's questions, for trend spotting and trendjacking ideas, you can actually also consider looking overseas. So we have done a project in Singapore with retail clients who have asked us to look at trends overseas to help them decide what products they can import next to line their shelves. So this is an example of how we can help you spot a trend that you may use outside of social media. So if you're feeling inspired and then you have ideas or concepts that you would like to test out, please reach out to any of us on the Isentia team after this webinar, and we can discuss with you on how to leverage these trends to help your brand soar and really improve your brand reputation. I'd like to express my appreciation to all attendees of this webinar. Thank you for being so participative. We loved interacting with you, and we hope that you found this session interesting and beneficial as well. Thank you for spending your afternoon with us. We look forward to seeing you in future events. Goodbye and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Maraming salamat.